Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Greer. It's lovely to have you here with me today, and welcome to part 2 of my 2022 favorites. In the first part of this video, which I'm going to have linked somewhere around here, I talked about some of my favorite books, music, and newsletters of the year. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the podcasts, apps, games, and television shows and movies that I enjoyed. So without further ado, let's get into part 2, and we're going to start with podcasts. One of my favorite podcasts this year was the Receipts podcast. It is hosted by 3 friends, Milena, Audrey, and Tolly, and they discuss anything from relationships to sex to gender roles. What makes this podcast so entertaining is just the way their personalities mesh. I cannot tell you how many times I have been just running on the treadmill and have burst out laughing because of something that either one of them has said. Sometimes they have guests on the show, and they also do the segment where they'll have people write in to the show about their dilemmas, and the ladies will give their responses, and those can be very entertaining. They are such a lively trio. They have such honest and candid conversations. Nothing is off limits, and so if you are into that type of entertainment, I definitely recommend you checking that one out. Another podcast I've been enjoying is The Art of Being Well. That one is produced by Ree Turner. She is also a YouTuber, and on this podcast she deals with topics like wellness, as the name suggests, self-awareness, anxiety, dealing with imposter syndrome. She has this very calming presence that I particularly relate to, and I find that this podcast is a great way to start off the day, just with positive thoughts, and it really puts you in a great mindset to start your day. So I would also recommend that one. All right, so let's talk about games for a second. I want to say first that I am by no means a hardcore gamer, but gaming was a huge part of my childhood, and I recently got back into it. I've been playing some 2K basketball, FIFA, a bit of GTA here and there, and The Sims, which, if you know me, you know how central that game is to my existence. But I wanted to highlight something a bit different. It's called True Colors, and it's a decision-based game. You play as Alex Chen, who returns to her hometown. A tragic event happens, and so she's forced to get to the bottom of it. And during this time, she discovers that she has the power of empathy. And what that means is that she has the ability to feel the emotions that other people are feeling. And so that power is central to her being able to get to the bottom of this tragic event that happens in her life. Such good storytelling. I'm really into story-based, decision-based games where the choices that you make determine the outcome. They're very similar to life in that way, and I guess that's kind of why I enjoy them. Okay, so apps. There are 2 that I want to highlight today. The first one is called Day One. Now, Day One is essentially a journaling app. I journal typically in a physical notebook with, pen and paper, old school. And usually that type of journaling is long form. What I find really useful about Day One is that it's great for journaling about those little moments that happen during the day. I like to use it for short form writing and quickly jotting down moments that made me laugh or think, or maybe something that reminded me of somebody. I usually try to make my Day One entries at the end of the day because it forces me to think about a specific moment in the day that was special to me or that I wanted to highlight for some reason. And that allows me to be grateful at the end of every day. And what I usually like to do is attach some kind of media, usually a photo, but there's also space for you to add voice recordings or videos, so I find that very, very useful. I also have the Day One widget in the widget section of my phone, and what I like about that is that it gives me another way to reflect because it shows me entries that I made in the past. And, I just feel like it's a nice thing to look at every day, just to remind you of what you were doing maybe a year ago, who you were spending time with, what kind of things you were interested in. And then Notion, I also wanted to give a special mention to. Now, I've been using Notion for many years, so it's by no means new to me, but it's been as useful as ever for me this year. If you're not familiar with Notion, the company describes it as a workspace that adapts to your needs, and there are so many different use cases for Notion, from note-taking to tracking goals in a project to running a company. And the way that I use it is to organize different aspects of my life. I like to take notes about, my travels. I like to log recipes in there. I like to keep track of my subscriptions. I used to use it to take notes when I was in school. So there's so many different things that I use Notion for. And I'm planning to do dedicated videos on both Day One and Notion. So be sure to look out for those in the new year. I'm going to wrap it up with the television category. I have been watching a lot of shows this year, and that's putting it lightly. It's got to the point where I'm having trouble keeping up, and I have a backlog of episodes to watch. Just to give you an idea of the kinds of things I watch, I'll put some of them up on the screen here. Things like Queen Sugar, The Crown, The Shy, All American, Blood and Water, lots of Netflix shows. There's just so much good TV these days. But I wanted to zone in on a particular genre of television that I never thought I would be talking about, and that is reality TV. If you had told me a few years ago that I would be into reality TV shows, I would not believe you. But somewhere along the line, I became hooked. I think it started with Married at First Sight, which is a show where singles will apply to the show to be matched with somebody who they only meet at the altar while they're getting married, and then they have 8 weeks to decide if they want to stay together or get a divorce. It's a very absurd concept, I know, but that's what makes it entertaining. I know lots of people look down on reality TV. I admit I was, one of those people, but what I will say is that not everything you consume has to be intellectual. Sometimes you just need that mindless entertainment, and I think reality TV does that very well. And what I'll also say is these shows, although a lot of them are scripted and can have some very questionable characters and moments, I think they really provide a look into unique human interaction, which is something that I just enjoy observing. So if you're into that, then you'll know why I enjoy shows like Love is Blind, like I said, Married at First Sight. There's this other one called Dating Around that I've enjoyed as well. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that in this segment. One movie that was really a highlight for me this year is one called Entergalactic. It is the visual accompaniment to Kid Cudi's 8th studio album, I believe, and it's named after the album. I am not a movie buff, but I do enjoy and appreciate a good film. I was really pleasantly surprised by this movie. I saw it on my Netflix recommends one day and added it to my list. And something about it just appealed to me. I think it might have been the art style, or the fact that it's set in New York, the fact that it's produced by Kid Cudi. Entergalactic is set in Manhattan, and it follows Jabari, who is an artist trying to make a name for himself. Jabari is voiced by Kid Cudi, and the movie details the events that occur after Jabari meets his next door neighbor, Meadow, who's voiced by Jessica Williams, and who happens to be a fellow artist, a photographer specifically. So it's essentially about two artists trying to make it in a big city, and who doesn't love that plot line? There's an amazing cast of voice actors, from Timothée Chalamet to Ty Dolla $ign to Jaden Smith, and it's just a great movie that I would recommend to anyone who enjoys that sort of 2D and 3D animation and that general storyline that I described, with an amazing soundtrack, I have to say. So that wraps up my favorite content of 2022. I hope that you were able to get some recommendations for new content that you can explore, even if it was just from one of these categories. I hope that something resonated with you. Remember that I'm going to leave links to everything that I mentioned in this video in the description, so do check those out. I'm actually thinking about doing a favorites video like this at the end of every month. If you would be interested in seeing something like that, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and also comment and let me know about your favorites of this year. What kind of content have you been enjoying, and what would you recommend to me or other people who are watching this video? Of course, as usual, I'd be so happy to hear about those. So take good care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.